Okay.
Welcome to this session of Hate Crime Week. We're having sessions at Bawso currently, talking about different types of hate crime, trying to speak to people in different communities about their experience or the experiences of those they know, making sure that we're learning from people who have lived experience. And yeah, my name is Chembo, Liandisha, and I work at Bawso as lead on hate crime. And today I'm joined by Trudy from Victim Support, and I'll just let Trudy introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Trudy Pease. I work for Victim Support as the Training and Engagement Officer for North Wales. So my job involves raising awareness really of hate crime. So I deliver training to a range of people that work with people, or businesses as well can access our training. I also, part of my role is trying to build relationships with people from minority groups, especially community groups. So yeah, a lot of my job kind of pre-COVID was being out and about and you know, mixing with people, meeting people, but now it's become very much of a virtual role. So hence here we are today having a chat virtually rather than in person. Hopefully at some point we'll get a chance to meet face to face.
That would be great. Yeah. I feel like now we can all put in our CVs or whatever, proficient in Zoom.
Yeah,
I think that would be a requirement now. You know, proficiency in MS Word, Excel, and Zoom is going to be the future of employability.
Definitely.
But, yeah. So yeah, today I just really want to have a relaxed, conversation with yourself, but just obviously we're dealing with, kind of, I guess, sensitive subjects as well. But it's just to give a human voice of a real person, not just me talking about, oh, this community faces this type of hate crime or this community faces these types of, prejudices. It's much better to have these conversations like this, I feel. And you can have a sip of your tea, by the way, during this.
I've drunk it now, thank you.
Mine's garlic and ginger.
Oh,
I just made garlic and ginger powder.
Garlic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I drink a lot of concoctions. So yeah, I just wanted, honestly, just to start off really is just kind of asking, have you ever experienced a hate crime? That's the first question I ask during these.
Yeah, I did experience a hate crime some years ago, actually. I was in a same-sex relationship at the time, and what happened was my teenage daughters went out to school one morning, and they came back straight away. They were really upset and distressed, and what had happened was, as they've gone out, they saw a symbol had been daubed onto our front door. And if it had been one of us going out, yes, we would have seen the symbol, but we wouldn't have had any idea what it actually meant. But my daughters realised straight away that it was the symbol of a local gang, and the gang was renowned for being racist and homophobic, particularly. Some of the gang members still actually went to my daughter's school. So it was a really kind of worrying time, because we didn't know we didn't know who'd done it. It was a horrible feeling going outside of your front door, not knowing what could happen. Wow. So yeah.
And what was your initial reaction when that had happened?
I think it was mainly fear. Just fear, because it was unknown and we didn't know who had done it, and it felt like it was like a direct attack on our identity, because our girls knew that the gang were renowned for being racist and homophobic. I think it meant that we knew that it was some kind of attack on our identity, so it wasn't just a random crime. And I think that was the bit that makes it feel really scary.
Yeah, that's really, honestly, like hearing when people actually share like exactly what they've experienced personally, it really opens up your eyes to like really the severe effects of hate crime on people, like on their livelihoods and how they do life, just their lifestyle in general, it's insane. Sometimes you think about it and you think, why, but so many people face it. So many people face it continuously. So it's a really big problem. People are still facing hate crime even now during, a pandemic. We have more serious issues to be dealing with, but we still have to deal with people being, hateful as well, so there's that. So thank you for that. Oh, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think in terms of the pandemic, some of the things we've heard, especially towards all groups really, but we've heard some really awful things happening to people, and I always feel that the pandemic has either brought out the best or the worst in people. It's almost like people have got more time, so some people are spending that doing good, and some people are being hateful. So
that's true. I mean, I've seen even online, for example, like online hate seems to be, well, I guess extremes are always online, but especially when it comes to hate, there's a really big extreme of hate being spewed at certain types of people, sometimes Asian people, and it's really during this period of time, with the pandemic and everything, I've seen a lot more online comments around people from Asian countries that are very, very racist, very, very intolerant and insensitive. And it's unfortunate, but it's really crazy when you really see it online, the way it plays out, because that spreads the fastest.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people feel much more able to they feel it kind of gets wrapped up as free speech. People feel much more confident, it seems, in thinking that they can get away with that behaviour, or because a lot of other people are doing it, thinking it's almost okay.
Exactly. I think that's also like you saying that's like that's the underlying thing with hate crime of all types. I think it's just also seeing it as, I can do it because I feel like, okay, I should also be able to voice how much I dislike or not like this group of people sometimes. So my other question is, how did that impact your daily life and your mental health?
Well, yeah, I had an undiagnosed mental health issue at the time, so I already experienced some difficulties, but because of what happened, I developed what's called a paranoid-like guardedness. So every time I heard, if I was in my living room, every time I heard a noise, it might be a little bang, it might just be somebody going past the house, I'd jump up at the window, I'd have a look to see if there was anybody doing anything to the front door or my car, or just hanging around. So it had a big impact in that way. Also, because I'd got the girls, my teenagers at school, we were very tempted to kind of change routines around them so that people didn't know the times they were coming in and out of the house. But that's really difficult with teenagers. They don't want. We wanted to drive them to school as well in the car, but they were very much like, Mom, you can't do that. So so that had an impact. Every time they went out, we were worried as well. We also tried to conceal our identity, and I think that happens a lot with people in hate crimes, especially kind of LGBT plus hate crime. So you kind of pretend not to be gay or whatever you are. So we'd never really gone around holding hands in public to a great extent anyway, because we were worried about homophobic attitudes. But if we were on holiday and or out walking in the countryside or whatever, we might hold hands, but we just stopped doing that, because it was kind of, you know, that's a way that we can hide our identity. So we stopped doing that too, and we eventually moved house actually as well.
Wow, that's wow. I can imagine why you would as well, because obviously, if you're targeted in a community, you feel very much naked, like you feel very bare, you know, like everybody's aware, and you knew they knew where you stand, like where you stayed and where you lived. That's so unfortunate. Wow.
Yeah,
And I
and I
think,
think
yeah, sorry, go
it
on.
kind of had an impact on people, other people as well. So, you know, we'd got our sons as well. They didn't live with us; they were all grown up. But obviously, you know, they knew what had happened, and they were quite angry about that. And we also had same-sex neighbours at the time as well, and they had their teenage. Well, not, he wasn't a teenager then. Their boy was just due to go up to the secondary school that my daughters were at. So obviously, you know, that had an impact on them as well. They were quite worried about that. Yeah.
Wow. And I think sometimes when people are committing crimes, they have a very short-sighted view, you know, an emotional short-sighted view, and they don't realize the much bigger impact they can have on people and the community, you know.
Yeah.
I'll just keep going. I don't want to keep voicing my opinions. So I just wanted to kind of like ask this question as well, you know, like the negative impacts of, you know, lack of tolerance for people in the LGBT plus community. Because sometimes I have heard people make comments, even, you know, I've heard people make comments about, you know, like a group of girls, you know, like together, like with two girls holding hands. When you see that, we all have seen it. I'm sure a lot of people have seen or heard people make comments, remarks, you know, against people kissing, you know, in public, as if it's something they should be ashamed of and things like that. So like, I just kind of want to, you know, obviously you've mentioned the negative impacts on, you know, direct hate crime, but, you know, like also like these microaggressions, you know, and intolerance, you know, the negative impact, like what impact do you think they have, and how do you, from your experience or maybe from experience of people you know, how were they affected, you know, by, you know, microaggressions?
I think that there is definitely a higher incidence of mental health issues within the LGBT plus community, and that's not because we have more mental health issues. It's because of society and how we're treated a lot of the time in society. So I think that's you know, that's one impact of having to live with that kind of negativity. A lot of LGBT plus people as well suffer from isolation. So especially, you know, even more so now during the pandemic, some of us experience, when we come out, a loss of family and friends. So a lot of people find that really hard to, you know, they say, oh, I can't imagine that happening, but it does, you know.
Exactly.
Not everybody's views are the same as yours, for example. So
exactly. Not every family is like, we are welcome, we're happy.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, some people from the LGBT plus communities experience homelessness because of that as well. You know, there are young people that lose their homes, even now in 2020, just because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity. So, yeah, there's lots of negative impacts for people, I think. You know, kind of you know, going around as well, feeling you know, people tend to assume that everybody should be like them, so i.e. everybody should be heterosexual, and that's the best way to kind of be and live, and again, you know, that doesn't kind of validate somebody's sexual orientation or gender identity who doesn't fit the majority. So yeah, those kind of impacts too.
Yeah, we're saying about people, and I'm just diverting a little. When you're, delivering training, we're speaking about, how people sometimes have a different reaction to younger people, having awareness over their sexual orientation at a young age, unless their awareness is that of being heterosexual, which is something I mentioned to you because I've seen that a lot. If a young person mentions that they're like a boy, if they're a girl, it's very much, oh, okay, yeah, that's normal. And then
Yeah,
if they mention they like a girl, it's like, what? No, you wouldn't know if you like a girl if you're only, you know what I'm saying? So things like that are
exactly.
also, would you say, are also quite, subtly aggressive in.
Definitely, it's that kind of. I mean, we tend to call that heterosexism, the
Mm,
way that the world is completely geared up for heterosexual people.
mm,
So, it kind of examples of that are things like. A lot of people think that sexual orientation is a choice. So if people
exactly.
choose to be gay or bisexual, um, yeah. Yeah, so there's lots of kind of different things around that,
Yeah.
definitely.
And it's funny how we still have such a way to go around these issues. You would think, we have come so far, and it's like, we're getting to that point where everybody accepts, and it's just not. It's like there's still a whole journey to take, place to be on, because we're having this conversation right now.
Yeah, and I think that that can be quite shocking for people
Mm,
because a lot of people they don't I think I said before, it's almost like some people are in a bubble.
mm-hmm,
And so, for example, if they're in a family and perhaps have got children in the family who
mm,
mix with other teenagers, perhaps, and some of those
mm-hmm,
teenagers might be gay or
mm,
some of them might be trans, and that's very well accepted, that can almost create kind of the idea that everybody's okay with this nowadays.
exactly.
Um, Whereas, I was talking to somebody on training the other day and they were saying, but, there's not really a problem with young people these
Mm,
days. And I was trying to explain to them that that can be your perception of things if you work perhaps in a role where you work with people,
mm-hmm,
or like I say, you've got young people at home in your
mm-hmm,
household who are very okay, they've got gay friends or whatever.
exactly.
But for some people in general society, they've
Mm-hmm,
never met a gay person. They're not
exactly.
open to talking to people or learning anything from people or about people. And yeah, I think that's where kind of prejudice comes from, the
Exactly.
ignorance and stereotyping.
Exactly. Yeah, and prejudice
Yeah,
of all kind is also like just lack of exposure to certain,
yeah,
people or things or incidents. So it's just like, okay, no, that's not normal, because
yeah,
it's not normal for them as, based on their life experience and what they've seen. Um,
yeah.
yeah, thank you for that as well. This question, I've been looking at these questions trying to like, yeah, I think one of the most important questions, if not the most important, I feel, is how can people who don't identify as LGBT plus be better allies?
Oh, right. I was hoping you'd ask me this one because I think that we all have unconscious bias, which means we tend to stick to people who are like us.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of what I've just been talking about, really. I think it's really important for all of us to kind of make sure that we kind of mix with people who aren't the same as us, and
Exactly.
kind of um, have the opportunity, I think, to chat and to ask questions without feeling like you're going to say something wrong. So, for
Exactly.
example, I think me and you met for the first time the other day. We
Mm-hmm.
had what I thought was a really brilliant conversation because we
Yeah.
were kind of learning about each other. And I think people don't always have the opportunity to do that,
No.
or if they do have that opportunity, they don't always take it up.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I think the only way that you can be better ally is to understand something of what the other person is experiencing, and the difficulties that they face, and how that feels.
Exactly.
So I really think it's important for people to take advantage of opportunities to meet people that are different to themselves. I also think if people get the opportunity to attend training, any kind of equality and diversity training, hate crime training, I think it's really important that people kind of go along with an open mind as well, I think.
Yeah, I feel like an open mind, is key.
Yeah. And there are different ways that people can be kind of allies, particularly to LGBT plus people. You can probably see my rainbow in the background there. So some people, it's kind of been used a bit differently during the pandemic, because the NHS have
it's very interesting, though.
It's been taken over as a bit of a kind of NHS symbol, but this rainbow that's behind me here actually has specific meaning. It was actually devised by somebody who was LGBT plus, and a lot of people use kind of a rainbow flag and stuff like that in their social media bios to show that they're an LGBT plus ally. I use, for example, my pronouns in my social media bios to try to show people that I'm a trans ally, and that I have an understanding, and just generally I'm a friendly person towards trans people. So there are lots of different things that we can do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. I think